This is Andie Burjek, Associate Editor at Workforce Magazine. We're here live at SHRM's annual conference in Chicago, speaking to HR experts about various subjects. So right now I have Breanna Scott. She is the Director of Service and Project Management at the Standard, and she knows a lot about paid family leave. So part of the big news in paid family leave recently is that New York has its very robust rules implemented right now. So from your expertise, what is going on in New York right now? What are some of the good things and the challenges that employers in New York State are facing with these new robust policies?
Yeah, thanks, Andie. New York has been implemented and been live since 1/1 of 2018. And so now we're really getting into the stretch where we're about 6 months into the program and employers are really starting to get used to having this law on the books. I would say the good thing really is primarily for the employees.
Yeah.
They're now finally getting the job protected and paid leave when they're needing to be out to care for a family member, to bond with a new child, or to take care of matters around the house when someone's called active military service. And all of that's fantastic. For the employer perspective, the good thing is now they're kind of all on a level playing field from a benefits package offering. If you think about it, small employers may not have been able to offer a program like this in the past, and now they can be more competitive with some of their larger counterparts that may have already had this as part of their benefits offering. So there are some inherent benefits for employers as well. Not everything has gone entirely smoothly, as most things don't when it's a new legislation, right?
Of course.
So there are a couple of pain points that I think employers are still struggling with a little bit. One of those is around premium payment and payroll deduction for this benefit. So for the New York paid family leave, you can deduct a percentage of an employee's payroll to help pay your premiums, essentially. And everyone gets charged the same rate. It's community rated. What's made it complicated is that the state of New York changed their payroll deduction guidance after the program went live in January. And so employers had already set up their payroll deductions one way, and then were told suddenly they needed to set it up a different way after the program already went live. So that's been a really, really big struggle for employers to figure out. So now it's a percentage of payroll that people deduct, and then there's an annual cap. So your employees will hit that cap at different times throughout the year. And it's kind of set up like a FICA approach.
Interesting.
So you deduct 0.12% of payroll from everyone, 0.126% of payroll from everyone up until they hit that annualized cap.
Yeah.
But you have people rolling off your bill at all different times. And that can be pretty difficult for an employer to manage.
Sure.
So that's one of the really big key pain points that employers are still struggling with now, 6 months in. I think they'll get used to it after about a year, but it is a bit of a challenge for 2018. The other thing that I think employers are still struggling with, and we're still getting a lot of questions about at the Standard, and I know my peers elsewhere are as well, is around coordination of other paid leave programs, whether it's employer-sponsored, like paid time off, and coordination with the unpaid leaves like FMLA. The state of New York provided a lot of guidance around their program, but not a ton of information around how you coordinate all of these other existing leaves. So there are a lot of questions about how this works with, if I already have a paid parental program at my workforce, how does that work? Can I take both of them at the same time? Can I not? Can I be eligible only for one or the other? Under the FMLA, an employer can choose for continuous leave only if someone's going out for bonding, not intermittent, not like taking every Monday off. But for New York paid family leave, they've written in intermittent bonding. So now you have to support that in the state of New York for employees who are out for bonding. That has implications to the FMLA policy at an employer's work site. So there are all these different things that the state of New York won't provide a ton of guidance on because it's not their programs. It's only they'll provide guidance around kind of the New York paid family leave itself. That's leaving employers with a struggle of, what do I have to do with all of these other things? Can my employees take PTO? Can they not? And they look to carriers to kind of help provide a lot of that guidance. So that's probably one of the other pain points that employers are really struggling with.
Awesome, those are really helpful, and I think why this topic is really interesting to me as somebody who writes for the employer audiences. You hear about more and more states thinking that are considering at least different paid family leave programs on a state level, and obviously that's a small number of states, especially when you compare that to how a lot of other countries in the world look like and what the rules are there.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm kind of curious, are there kind of lessons from New York's attempt to implement this policy that employers in other states can keep in mind if their state does decide to pass these programs?
Yeah, I would say there is quite a lot of statutory activity around paid family leave, and so one of the biggest key things is for employers really to start paying attention to what's happening within their own state at the legislative level and see what the state is proposing. One of the unfortunate things by not having a national program is every state is coming up with their own solutions to this.
Yeah.
So it looks a little bit different in every state. Different family members are covered. The benefit calculation works differently. Sometimes you can have a private insurance company manage it for you. Other times the state has to run it.
Yeah.
So you have to be pretty savvy as an employer to figure that out. God forbid you're a multi-state employer and you're actually having to manage this for different states all across the country. That can be really cumbersome to keep up with. So in those situations, employers may want to rely on their insurance carrier to help them with a little bit of guidance, as well as potentially their broker or consultant. There are also a number of great resources like SHRM. Honestly, SHRM really has a lot on their website, a lot of tools and tactics available for employers to prepare themselves for upcoming legislation. And I would say, you alluded to not a ton of states. There's a lot of activity at the statutory level. We have Washington and Washington, D.C. already coming on board. And 22 other states have proposed it at the House or Senate level at this point in time. Yeah.
So not necessarily rules that are being implemented yet, but
Correct.
On the state level, at least they're trying to get that legislation out as soon as possible.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And in fact, there's 3 states that are, if you happen to have employees in these states, you may want to keep your eye out. Hawaii, Colorado, and Massachusetts are all fairly close to kind of figuring out a paid family leave program for their state. So if you have employees in those states, that might be a key legislation to keep up with.
Fantastic. And you talked about this a little before, and I really just liked this point, so I want to bring it up again and see if you can expand on that. But you mentioned that in New York State, when there is a state level policy requiring all employees to offer this, it really helps large and small employers be able to compete with each other. So I just want to reinforce that because I do think that's really interesting. In the paid family leave space, it seems like you always hear about the big organizations, but it can be so difficult.
Right.
But still important for small organizations to offer it as well.
Right. It really is helping, in some ways, kind of level that playing field for your total rewards benefits package. You can compete differently than you have been able to in the past. Granted, not every small employer is super excited about having to do this. It can be an impact to your organization and definitely to your staffing that sometimes can't be well planned for. And that can be a little problematic for some employers, but it does allow really small employers to say, hey, my benefits package is just as robust as that guy over there who has 20,000 employees. So
fantastic. And I guess just so watchers can be reminded of what exactly is in this plan, what are some of the key provisions in New York State's paid leave?
So at this point, in 2018, it's a 50% benefit up to a weekly cap amount based on the statewide average weekly wage. If you need to be out to bond with a new child, that's not just new birth, that's foster and adoption as well. If you need to be out to care for a family member, and family members pretty broad, it includes spouse, parent, parent-in-law, child, grandparent, and grandchild. So it's a pretty broad definition there. And the third reason you can take leave is if you need to be out to take care of household matters when someone is called to active military service.
That's great.
So it kind of mirrors the FMLA to a certain extent, but it's more robust in a lot of ways. And you have both job protection for the time you take off, as well as some payment so that you're getting a little bit of income replacement while you're out on leave.
Fantastic. That's really helpful. And I guess just a side note, I know a while ago, I can't remember the publication, but they had a story about adding chosen family to paid family leave policies. And I don't know if that's actually ever going to happen, but whenever I like talk to someone about paid family leave, I
Yeah.
think about that. People who aren't close to their blood family, but they have their own chosen family. Which,
Right.
Just a side note, but I think it's an interesting space.
It is.
Yeah.
Even New York did start to think about this in a little bit.
Yeah.
They included in loco parentis as one of the covered family members, meaning someone who acted as a parent. So
Wow.
if your aunt actually was the one who raised
Wow.
you, she would be your in loco parentis. So New York's trying to get around that, or trying to get to that chosen
Yeah.
family a little bit, not entirely,
Yeah.
but it's kind of the steps towards that, I would say.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Those are all of the questions I have for you right now. I know it's such a great topic
Right.
to discuss. I could talk about this all day, but as you need to end soon, I guess, do you have any final thoughts for employers, either employers in New York State, in other states in which these laws might be enacted soon, or just companies in states where there aren't any laws that are interested in paid family leave? Do you have any final advice for them?
Yeah, so as employers, if you're struggling at all with paid family leave or what's coming next, like I said, SHRM has some great resources. Also, DMEC, the Disability Management Employers Coalition, they have a lot of really good tools and tactics that you can use as well. So I would suggest reaching out to them, and you can join them if you're not already a member. They definitely could help. Both SHRM and DMEC can help employers a lot with the struggles or things that they might need to think about as these programs are rolling out. I would also say, if you're interested in paid family leave at your statutory level, in most states, you can talk to your representatives or senators and kind of find out the status if you can't figure it out from some state websites, and throw some support behind it. So that would be my recommendations.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
talking to me
thank
today,
you very
Breanna.
much, Andie.
This is Workforce Live. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.